Hey everybody, in this next video lesson, we're going to talk about how you can calculate the amount of heat that changes in a system. There are a number of things to consider, and we're going to talk about them next. Now first, let's talk about different kinds of energy. There are tons of different kinds of energy that we can use in science. Like electricity is a form of energy. We've got kinetic energy, which is the energy of movement. Potential energy, which is the energy due to position. There's also heat energy. Energy that's radiated off a warm body. There's also mechanical energy. There's lots of different types of energy. But of the energies that we are going to be talking about in chemistry, heat is going to be the primary one we are going to be referring to. All measurements and variables in chemistry have a unit, and heat is no different. Heat is measured in joules, or capital J. A joule is the amount of energy needed to move 1 kilogram of mass 1 meter in 1 second. Now that's kind of an abstract definition, but all of this is to say that a joule is really not that much energy. So we will actually count joules usually in the thousands, as in a kilojoule is 1,000 joules. If you took a 1 liter water bottle and moved it from one side of the table to another, that is approximately 1 joule of energy needed to move that mass. So like I mentioned, not a lot of energy. In this class, we're going to explore heat in two different ways. One is the heat when a chemical reaction happens. We will define that as delta H, and we'll do this at a later date and time. But today we're going to talk about the heat stored in an object, and the variable here is Q. Both delta H and Q are measured in joules or kilojoules, but they're used in different situations. The top one is for chemical reactions, and this bottom one is for standard objects. Let's take a look at this one now. In order to calculate the heat stored in an object, there are 3 factors to consider. First, how much mass the object has, because the more mass something has, the more heat it will need to absorb in order to warm up. Think about putting food into the microwave. If you put a small object in the microwave and put it on, say, for a minute, it's going to warm up pretty quickly. But if you put a very large amount of food on your plate and put it in for a minute, it's not going to change temperature very quickly. The amount of heat that goes into it is the same, but because the second plate of food is much more massive, it's going to take more energy to get the temperature to go up. Another thing to think about is how high you want the temperature change to happen. The temperature change is called delta T. Delta, once again, means change in, and so in order to calculate delta T, one would need to know the final temperature and subtract it from the initial temperature, and that will tell you your change in temperature. If you want the object to increase in temperature higher, you're going to need to add more heat energy in order for that to happen. If you put your cup of water in the microwave and you put it on for a minute and it only warms up a little bit, maybe you're trying to make a cup of hot tea, well, you put it in for longer. Putting it in for longer will subject it to more heat, which will then result in a higher temperature. So the more the temperature changed, the more heat was needed in order to warm it up. But it's important to note that we can also talk about energy change or heat change as energy being lost. So you may go from a high heat to a low heat. And that means that this delta T can be negative. Delta T can be positive if it's warming up, but it also can be negative if the substance is cooling down. And the amount of energy lost is based on the temperature change from a high temperature to a low temperature. Now finally, we need to know the type of substance. Every type of substance is going to absorb heat at different rates. This is what is known as the specific heat capacity. Specific heat capacity, or lowercase letter c, is the energy needed to raise 1 gram of substance 1 degree Celsius. That's a really fancy way to say that specific heat measures how much energy a substance will absorb before it changes temperature, or how much energy a substance will release before changing temperature. The bigger the specific heat, the more energy it will need to get hot. That means it warms up slowly, but will also cool down very slowly. Think of your insulators. You wouldn't grab a hot pan with your hand because that would burn you, but instead you would put on like a cloth oven mitt. That cloth oven mitt has a high specific heat capacity, which means that it will get hot eventually, but it heats up very slowly. It will absorb a lot of heat from that hot pan before the temperature changes. Eventually the temperature will get hot enough that it'll burn your hand, but at first, it'll buy you some time so that you can move that hot pan from the oven to the countertop. Insulators, or things with high specific heat, warm up very slowly. But once they're hot, they hold on to their heat for a long time, and they also cool down very slowly. Substances with smaller specific heat capacities means that they need less energy to heat up to get hot. This is like your metals, right? You put a spoon into a hot cup of coffee, and within seconds, the spoon has absorbed energy and is about the same temperature as the hot cup of coffee or the hot cup of tea. This metal has a small specific heat capacity, so it doesn't take a lot of energy to get hot. These substances with small specific heats warm up very quickly, but also cool off very quickly. You're looking at a list of common substances here on the left, and across from them, they have their specific heat capacity values. Some observations, as I mentioned on the last slide, metals have very low specific heat capacities. Things like aluminum and copper, gold, these are all numbers that are less than 1. That means that they require less than 1 joule of energy per gram to go 1 degree Celsius. So they'll heat up very quickly. A little bit of energy increases their temperature quickly. Nonmetals, on the other hand, have high specific heat capacity. Those are your insulators, things like water, ice, or even hydrogen gas. Hydrogen gas sometimes is piped into between 2 panes of glass as an insulator on your double pane or triple pane windows at home. Hydrogen in between the panes actually acts as an insulator because it doesn't absorb the heat and doesn't allow the heat to transfer from the outside to the inside very easily. So in summary, metals have small specific heat values which allow them to heat up fast but also cool off fast. It doesn't take many joules of energy to make their temperature go up. But high specific heat substances like hydrogen and oxygen and water have high specific heats because they take a lot of energy before their temperature goes up. Water absorbs a lot of joules of energy in order to go up 1 degree Celsius. But once it gets warm, it takes forever to get cold. It has to get rid of all those joules in order to go down 1 degree Celsius. And so water, at this time of the year, you'll know that lakes are starting to clear off from ice. We're not going to go swimming in them, though, because they need to be outside, heated up for the next 2 or 3 months in order to get warm enough for us to get in. On a 70-degree day, the temperature of the water is not going to increase to 70 degrees right away because they have a high specific heat. It will take a lot of joules of energy of the water to increase its temperature, so it's comfortable enough to swim in. Specific heat capacity is used like the ideal gas constant, and we're going to do some calculations with the specific heat in the next slide. Its 2 jobs are, 1, it's a multiplier for the math, but its second job is also to provide units that cancel out. Just like the ideal gas constant in the last unit, the ideal gas constant had 4 units, 3 of which canceled out. The specific heat capacity has 3 units, 2 of which will cancel out. So here's the equation that we're going to be used to calculating the heat change. That is Q is equal to M times C times delta T, or sometimes referred to as MCAT, because the triangle in the delta T looks like the letter A, so MCAT. Q equals MCAT. Q is the heat measured in joules. This may be positive if it's an endothermic situation, or maybe negative if it's an exothermic situation. Mass is always a positive number. This is the measure of how many grams the substance you have. The specific heat capacity is something that you will pick off a table, or it will always be told to you. And so you never have to memorize these. Every substance has their own unique specific heat capacity, and you will choose it off a table like I mentioned. Finally, the change in temperature is, as I talked about previously, a measure of how much temperature change happens over the course of the temperature change. Well, you take the final minus the initial. So if your final is high and your initial is low, this is going to result in a positive number, which means that energy must have been absorbed. So if your delta T is positive, your Q will also be positive. But if you're cooling off, if you are exothermic and you're losing energy, then your delta T will be negative because your final temperature will be small and you're going to subtract a larger temperature that maybe was initially higher, and final minus initial may result in a negative number. And if your delta T is negative, your Q will also be negative. So let's finish off this video with a couple of practice problems. And I'm going to hopefully show you how you can use Q equals MC delta T to solve for a missing variable. It's no different than using the ideal gas law, which we learned about in the last unit. I also recommend doing the same way, setting up the variables Q, M, C, and delta T. You have joules of energy, so that's your Q. So you have a positive 2,450 joules of energy was added to a sample of iron at 20 degrees Celsius. 20 degrees Celsius is your initial temperature. Now the final temperature of the iron is 620 degrees Celsius, so that's your T final. And finally, the mass of the iron is going to be your unknown. What is the mass? That's your unknown. So let's start filling in the variables. My mass is unknown. My energy is 2450. My specific heat, which was listed right here at the bottom, was 0.450 joule per gram degrees Celsius. And a quick calculation of final minus initial. If I take 620 minus 20, that means I have a positive 600 degrees Celsius temperature change. Now all I need to do is take these numbers and plug them into this equation and solve for the missing number. So I'll have 2450 joules is equal to X times 0.450 joule per gram degrees Celsius times positive 600 degrees Celsius. Now if I take 0.450 multiplied by 600, I get a number of 270. I'm going to divide that onto both sides. The units here are going to cancel out. Degrees Celsius cancels degrees Celsius, joules cancels joules, and the only unit left uncanceled is grams, which is good because I'm solving for grams. So if I take 2,450 and divide by 270, my final mass is equal to 9.07 grams rounded to 3 significant figures, and that is the mass of my iron sample in this example. So in summary, I recommend setting up your variables, find the numbers in the problem, plug in the ones you know, solve for the missing variable. Here's the last one I'm going to show you. I've added a little wrinkle to this one. Just like before, I want to set up my variables Q, MC, and delta T here on the left. This time I gave you 35 kilojoules of energy. Now before I do Q equals MC delta T, my kilojoules have to be in joules. So I need to multiply by 1,000 or move the decimal 3 times to the right. So my Q here is 35,000 joules. Now this time I give you the mass of 250 grams and I give you the specific heat of water of 4.18 joules per gram degrees Celsius. So the only thing I'm missing is the delta T. So now all I need to do is set up 35,000 joules is equal to 250.0 grams times 4.18 joules per gram degree Celsius times X. I'm going to multiply 250 times 4.18, and then I'm going to take that number, which is 1,045, and divide it onto both sides to isolate my X. When I take 35,000 divided by that number, I'll get a delta T of 33.5 degrees Celsius rounded to 3 significant figures. And that is how you do some calculations of heat change. Well, that takes care of this video lesson. Thanks for watching.